Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into antitrust. And you gotta ask, why are we using rules made for old-school oil barons to police today's tech giants? It's a huge question, and it's at the heart of some major battles right now. Okay, let's jump right in with the big question everyone's asking. Are today's tech giants just too powerful? I mean, how much control do they really have? Well, let's look at the numbers, because they're pretty eye-opening. Take a look at this, 92%. According to StatCounter, that's how much of the entire global search market Google has. Think about that for a second. It's a staggering amount of control over how basically all of us find, well, everything. And then there's Amazon, 38%. That's their piece of the pie for all online sales in the US. So almost 4 out of every $10 you spend online, yep, it's going through Amazon. That gives them some serious influence over what we all buy. All right, so we've seen just how big these players are. Here's how we're going to break it all down today. We'll start with these modern giants, then go back to the original trust busters. We'll check out the rule book they wrote, see how it's being used now, get into the big debate around it, and finally peek into the future of competition. So yeah, the dominance of these companies is just undeniable. But you know what? This kind of thing, this concentration of power, it's not new. Not at all. And that brings us to how we've handled this kind of thing in the past. Let's actually hop in a time machine and go way back to the Gilded Age. Seriously, because to really get what's happening today, you have to understand that while the tech is brand new, the problem of companies getting too big is a very, very old story. So where does the word antitrust even come from? Well, it comes from fighting these things called trusts. And these weren't just regular big companies. Nope. They were these super clever setups where a bunch of companies would hand over control to a single board, all to completely corner the market and crush any competition. We're fucking total domination. Naturally, the government had to step in. They created a whole legal playbook to fight back. The first big move was the Sherman Act in 1890. That was the law they used to break up the massive Standard Oil Trust in 1911, a huge moment. And right after that, they added more laws to beef up the rules and try to keep the game fair for everyone. Okay, so what's actually in this rule book? What kind of stuff is against the rules when it comes to fair competition? The main goals here are actually pretty simple. And, they make a lot of sense. It's all about promoting competition, protecting us, the consumers, and making sure no one company gets so big it chokes out everyone else. The big idea? More competition means better stuff, lower prices, and more cool new ideas for everybody. All right, so one of the most obvious no-nos is price fixing. This is when companies that are supposed to be competing secretly team up and say, hey, let's all agree to sell this thing for X amount. It's a classic move, and it's almost always bad for our wallets. A really famous recent case, the ebook drama with Apple and some big publishers. They got caught, and it cost them. Then there's what's called abuse of dominance. This is where a company that's already the king of the hill uses its power to bully or shut out anyone trying to compete. For example, the European Commission slapped Google with a huge fine. We're talking billions, because they said Google was using its control over the Android system to force phone makers to use Google's apps. That's a textbook example. And that right there perfectly illustrates how these old rules are being used on the new titans of tech. The battlefield isn't railroads and oil anymore. It's search engines and app stores. But the core legal fight, it's basically the same. I mean, check this out. The parallels are just wild. Back in the day, Standard Oil had its hands on almost 90% of US oil. Fast forward to now, and Google controls about 92% of global search. It's almost the exact same level of market control just 100 years later. And this isn't a one-off thing. We've seen this story over and over. You had Microsoft back in the 90s with its Windows monopoly. And today, you've got Google under the microscope for search and ads, and Amazon being questioned because it's both the store and a seller in that store. Regulators keep asking the same basic question, is this fair play? All of this has kicked off a massive debate, and it's a super important one. Are these old laws, built for an age of factories and railroads, even the right tools for the job in our fast-moving digital world? Are they helping, or are they hurting? And honestly, there are great arguments on both sides of the fence. One camp says, yes, this protects consumers and sparks new ideas. The other side worries that we're just punishing successful companies and that the law can't keep up with tech anyway. It's really interesting. For a long time, the main test was consumer welfare. Did prices go up? But now a lot of people are saying, hold on, that's too simple. They argue a company can hurt competition in lots of ways, even if the price of something stays low or is even free. A really strong counter-argument you'll hear is that, hey, maybe being big isn't so bad. Some economists argue that you need these massive companies with tons of cash to fund the really big, expensive, game-changing research. The stuff that truly pushes us all forward. And to put a number on that, just look at Apple. In 2023 alone, they poured nearly $30 billion into R&D. That's more than most of their smaller competitors combined could even dream of spending. So it raises a real question. If you break up a company like that, do you risk killing that incredible engine of innovation? And this is so important. This whole debate isn't just for lawyers and economists to argue about. The results of these fights have a real, direct impact on all of us, every single day. I mean, we're talking about the price you pay for your phone, the choices you have in your app store, how much a small business has to pay to advertise online. It even affects how quickly new technology gets developed. It really does touch everything. And that, right there, is the core problem we're all trying to figure out. How do you find the right balance? How do we keep markets fair and competitive without squashing the amazing, world-changing innovation that these giant companies are often responsible for? Which brings us right back to where we started. We're facing the exact same question the original Trustbusters did 100 years ago, just with a 21st century twist. Should we break up these giant tech companies? What is the right balance of power? There are no easy answers here, but how we decide to answer that question is going to shape the future of technology for all of us.